Yeah, play it. Just tell me. Nice. Woo-wee! All right, and we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Prickly Pear Show. I'm Ron Furman. Next to me is the lovely Mirav Richter. We have Jonathan. Is it Tarrant? Is it how you say it?
Jonathan Tarrant.
Tarrant. Tarrant. Or is it Tarrant?
You put the wrong
Tarrant.
emphasis on the
Interesting.
wrong syllable.
Syllable. I know that. It's great. We don't need those applause.
We can do our own.
We can do it, definitely. Welcome back to the show. It's so nice to be here today. It is World Mental Health Day, and that is really the reason why I decided to come back on October 10th as being our first show back. Yes, power to the people. The reality is, and why I really decided to do it is when I came up with the idea of the Prickly Pear Show, I wanted to help others, and there's no better time than to help people with mental health, especially during today's times, during the pandemic, where, in my opinion, a lot of people are suffering. And I figured, let's get started. We'll talk a little bit about Mental Health Day. We'll talk a little bit about your personal experiences with it, what you guys are doing, what we may be thinking is going to happen in the future. So we're going to look into 5 years from now. So, Mirav, why don't you start us off with just what's your connection to the mental health community?
Well, despite the fact that I'm batshit crazy, am I allowed to swear?
You're allowed to do whatever you want on this show.
I mean,
There's no more cursing. I don't care. You can do anything you want.
Anything I
Anything you want.
I mean,
Anything you
that's
want.
Like no
I mean, you
rules.
clearly
This
did
is
not
like cage
wear
match.
green
This is-
on Mental Health Day,
Am I
so
supposed-
you
like,
did what
I
you
wore,
wanted to do.
I wore the closest I have to green. It has green within it because it is all colors are within black.
I will be quiet. I will,
like
I
that
will
was
just.
a fa-
I will
is
just.
this a
I will,
fashion
I will
show or
allow
mental
you. I will allow you to continue. But
just-
thank you, Jonathan, for wearing green. Really appreciate it. That's very nice. Thank you
For
for
future
showing.
reference,
I
I do
listen.
have permission to slap. I was given clearance. I was
You're
given-
allowed to hit me. You're allowed to do whatever. You're my guest.
So what was the question? My connection to mental
Yeah,
health.
like how did you get it? Like, for example, when I talk about mental health, people seem to put me in some sort of box. Like, it's like, oh, you're the mental health guy. No, I'm a guy who happened to suffer at a certain point, and I decided to get help. And then I realized there are other people suffering, and I decided to do my part. What brought you into it?
Oh, yeah, so 100%. So I have had mental health ups and downs, like we all have in my life. I've had a few rough patches. And I, especially as a teenager, was the first time that I really got into this deep, dark vortex of like contemplating suicide and not knowing what to do with myself. And the one person who saved me from that was actually my grandmother. My grandmother, who had, everything against her, right? Like she was just the happiest woman in the world, despite all those trappings that we think will make us happy. Like we think, oh, if I'm really rich, I'll be happy.
Right.
My grandmother was not really rich. She was a housewife, which war generation, right?
Right.
That was like she worked really hard. But my grandfather was a postman. Like they were not rich. People think, oh, if I only have health. My grandmother suffered through the war, and she came out with the mangled feet and the battle scars and the tattoo. She literally had not. People think, oh, if I have the easiest time,
Right.
then I'll be happy.
Right.
She had the hardest time, and yet she was the happiest woman in the world. Like the happiest woman I've ever met. And here I was with some challenging times, but relative to going through war, I mean, I was cruising down Easy Street and my grandmother said to me, she said, Meravi, you do not need smaller problems, you need bigger shoulders.
She's Israeli, isn't she?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, she's like
Makes
war
sense.
generation, right? But
Makes sense.
Polish German, right? That whole, but she had me see, you know, here I was at the point of like wanting to commit suicide.
Right.
And suddenly getting this reframe at the time where it's like the problems are going to come. The problems are going to come. You don't need less problems. You
Right.
need bigger shoulders to put those problems on.
So
And
I have a question for you with regards to that. So right now, I have a friend who is going through, his own problems.
Yeah.
And he realizes that it's not that big. He realizes that what I mean by that, it's not Holocaust big.
Right,
It's
right.
not having money big. It's having a loving family. But something happened in his life, and it's very hard for him to get out of that situation.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned something like, well, once you start to look at someone else and see how they're looking at life, maybe this is a way out to stop
Right.
feeling sorry for yourself. And when you say that to someone, it seems clear to us, but it's much harder to do than just to
Yeah.
say, oh, I understand. How did you get out of that situation of like starting to feel sorry for yourself? Did you come up with a plan of how to get out? Did you come up with something? Like, I'm sure it wasn't like, okay, my grandmother suffered, I'm in a better position, then
Yeah.
I'll get out of it.
So yeah, 100%. I mean, we're talking about like, there's been a big gap of time between the time I was a teenager and now. Not going to tell you how big, but a pretty
Right.
big gap. Like you never ask a lady, but it doesn't matter. It's been at least 30 years. Point of it is, 100% I've had hard times since then. So it's a little overly simplistic to
Right.
go at something that helped me when I was a teenager.
Right.
So let's fast forward. I've had hard times, in the last few years, and let's fast forward really to the pandemic, right? Like, let's look at what it is now, what's
Okay.
in front of us now. 100% my life shifted entirely in 2020. I went from having a corporate job, security, paycheck, benefit plan, to suddenly, overnight, none of those things.
Wow.
Right? And how do you when you have your life, like, and I enjoyed my life,
Right.
like I loved my life. It's not as if I was saying like, oh, it was a gift to not have my corporate job anymore. But I had to go through withdrawal symptoms of like, who am I? It's like the phoenix going in the fire, burning and then coming back out. And it was suddenly like, okay, right now I have to look at this like it's a gift. If I am fast forwarding now my life to retirement age, what is it that I want to do when I retire, quote unquote, because I'll never retire, like the retire, I'm never going to get tired. What is it that I want to do now to make the life of my dreams happen, and now just fast forward it a little bit? And it didn't come instantaneously, but it came with looking at each pebble along the way, right?
But you
Kinda
had
like
some
Hansel and
training. You
Gretel.
had some training probably to get you there, right? I mean, you've gone through something before, and sometimes when we go through something, after I'm not going to say it becomes easier because it's a different challenge, but we sort of have the blueprint of what had worked in the past. Like, before I teach, and if I'm driving to school and I'm very upset,
Yeah.
I start laughing when I get into the class. So this way I'm in a different mood as opposed to trying to kill the guy who just cut me off.
Right, changing
So
your
what
state.
what is it that you did? And we're going to get to you, Jonathan, in just one second. What is it that you did that led you to come up with a plan of, okay, what am I going to do now?
Yeah. So first of all, I've known for a while now, every time I've come into an obstacle, a hurdle, a challenge, I can't get out of it alone, right? There's always going to be someone. Look for someone who's a little bit further ahead, right? When you're in grade 2, you look at the grade 3, like, oh my God, you're a
Right.
genius. How'd you get that's my mentor. So I always looked for mentors. And here I was in 2020, as you know, we couldn't leave the house. We were locked down. Like, for anyone who's watching this anywhere else in
Right.
the world, I don't think they get how locked down we were. Like, it was to the point where it was like people were watching to see how many cars were on your street.
Absolutely. It was ridiculous.
And you had your friends park around the corner. So,
Right.
Like, it was crazy.
Right.
It was crazy how locked down we were. And
People are
yet,
still crazy from that.
literally.
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
we're not saying that pejoratively.
No,
like,
no.
we're actually acknowledging, like,
Yeah,
it is
no, no.
crazy making.
Absolutely.
Like, we lived in a crazy making world.
Yeah.
So I saw a little ad for a Tony Robbins free challenge, and I went, that changed my life. I'm down for that. And having come from the women's empowerment world, which you and I can riff about, and we'll probably get into the
Sure.
slaps. Then. But coming from the women's empowerment world, there was something very aggressive about his tactics and his way. But so I had kind of thrown the baby out with the bathwater. But then here I was taking this new challenge and kind of going, that resonates. I get that. Like, I actually align with a lot of the things that he says. And as it progressed, then I became one of his coaches. I crewed on some of his events, and one of them was a shift into the way I do business.
You mentioned something so nonchalantly about being one of Tony Robbins' coaches.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about Tony Robbins, all right? And Merav Richter next to me was his coach. Talk to me a little bit about that, because when we're looking at Tony Robbins, we're saying this guy's a multimillionaire, probably the happiest guy, is able to swear at people.
Yeah.
I've seen, right? He's very aggressive in his tactics, right?
Yeah.
And
made it when you can swear at people.
so there you go.
Okay.
No, but he
Okay.
does that, right? I mean, again, because I've seen I'm Not Your Guru, like the movie. And I was
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah,
my goodness,
yeah.
I don't know if I want to sit with this guy, but
Right.
but the idea that he still needs someone to coach him. So meaning we
Right.
always need to be able to talk to someone, and that is something that I've noticed while I was going through my own troubles and tribulations, that I needed to have that social life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now we're in a situation where we don't really have a social life. Like
Right.
I've actually cut out many friends during the pandemic.
Right.
So I want to know, how did you become a coach of this person, and why would he look to you? I mean, doesn't he have everything? So this is more for the audience that thinks that there is the perfect person. There is this person over there who can deal with any problems that comes their way.
Yeah, let me just back this up here for a second so that there's no misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't coach Tony Robbins. I'm coaching under the Tony
Coaching
Robbins
under.
organization.
Gotcha. Okay,
so
so-
I don't want to.
For a second, I heard coaching him, so I was like, okay, so I take
I coach
everything
for-
I just said. Take it back. Take it back. Take it back.
Rewind,
Okay.
rewind.
No, but I guarantee that he does have his mentors.
Oh,
I
he
guarantee that in
acknowledges
order
that.
for him to be successful
Yeah.
at his position, he's still looking at other people. He's still learning.
Yeah.
He's still, rediscovering himself. He still reaches points where I want more, and I want more.
100%. And he talks about that. He talks about that quite openly at his events. He talks about who he has as coaches today
Mm-hmm.
and who he has as coaches in different elements of his life. Like, you don't necessarily have a single coach for a single thing. You have a coach for every single aspect of your life that you want. Like, I know you're familiar with that in your line of work, and I'm sure.
Well,
Ron
why don't
will
we
get to
segue
you.
into
Yeah,
that, actually?
perfect,
So, Jonathan, what brings you into this world? I mean, you could tell us a little bit of what you do. There's something that you're advertising up there, which is totally cool. It's the way we're meant to be. But talk to us a little bit about your experience within the mental health community, and, a personal story if you have one.
Absolutely, I have one. I mean, my personal story is what got me here in the first place.
Your mom, I'm guessing, but other than that.
Well, how long do you have?
We don't have any place for him to lie down, but we can take this longer. We can go further with this. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No. I got into the space of men's coaching and men's empowerment through my own personal experiences. To your point, like, I had a really comfortable life. I had a cushy job. I had a lot of great things, that I was proud of. A lot of things that I wanted to be more grateful about. But I also had a lot of self-esteem and issues and poor, self-worth. A lot of conflicting and confusing and downgrading type beliefs about myself. So I found it difficult to appreciate all the things that I had. And the more I acted out those misaligned beliefs, the more I expressed what I was seeing of myself on the inside, the more damage I was doing, and the less I liked myself. So, long story short, I led myself into a complete emotional collapse, burned down the life that I had created, and then found myself in a position of having to look very hard at me and figure out what the hell I was going to do next, and did I like the person that I had just exited from?
Right.
Did I want to continue being that person? Was that person working, or did he need an upgrade?
There's usually sort of a situation that happens, right? The kind of like a wake-up call, right? Like for me, it was my divorce, and I guarantee there were many, many more problems than just the divorce, but the divorce happened to be my sort of catalyst. Did you have like that moment where something extraordinary happened, where that's when you started to really realize, ooh, this is what I've become?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I had I mean, the divorce was not immediate, but the separation was immediate.
Mm-hmm.
I got that. I got kicked out of my house. I basically, like, that life ended overnight, and yeah, I was sort of outside in the cold, having to come to terms with the fact that I had put myself in that position, having to face all the mistakes that I had made and the regrettable choices that I'd made. I'd been living inside of my own pain and my own denial for so long, and like I said, I brought myself to a place where I just couldn't ignore it anymore, and I had to deal with it. So that completely put a fork in my path and set me on in a new direction.
So what was the first thing that you did to try and get out of that situation? Like for example, for me, if it wasn't for the comfort, by the way, call out to my parents, to giving me a place to sleep after my divorce when I came back from LA and New York, that was sort of a helper, was a crutch. And then from that, I was able to at least now get up and go to work and go to the gym. Not that often to the gym, but
You don't need to admit that.
You can think about going to the gym.
the audience has eyes; they can see. There was something, like I had some support, and if it wasn't for that support, I don't think I'd be able to, put my foot forward. Did you have any support? Like, was there someone that you could talk to? I mean, what led you to get out of the situation?
I did have some pretty amazing support. I did have like a couple really good friends that stood by me. Frankly, my ex-wife supported me for a little while. Like, we still talked for a little bit and tried to work things through and prevent me from
Doing
killing
bad things?
myself, basically. I did have a little bit of support, and then I also had incredible motivation to get up and do something about the state of my life. So I found additional support. I went and sought out, counselors, mentors. I put myself in very in what would have been very uncomfortable situations, like networking,
Right.
like social situations, that I would have rather stood in front of a subway train before.
Right.
I put myself purposely into new situations like that to challenge me and just to see how it would go. And
So is this due to desperate mode? Like for example, I would have never thought about calling CAMH when I was going through whatever I was going. I was so embarrassed of the fact that I would ask for help. Did you feel the same way about asking for help, or was it something that was just sort of I reached a low point, and I kind of grab onto whatever?
It was the shame of as a man. It was that feeling of shame about being weak or wanting to ask for help that put me on the self-destructive path, or contributed to the self-destructive path in the first place. So after I had my breakdown, after I felt like I had really nothing left to lose, and I just didn't care anymore.
Right.
I was just like, I'm so beyond giving two shits about what anybody thinks. I'm going to do what I have to do to make this right and get better.
I'm going to ask you guys both a weird question, but what do you think would actually help anyone? And what I mean by that is some people say, well, I'm not interested in therapy. I think that's not for me. I'm not interested in pills. I'm not interested in... So, in my opinion, it's socialization. I think that being around people and being free and without judgment would be the number one thing for me. What do you think, in your opinion, maybe we'll start with you, Merav, as the one thing that really would be able to save someone from causing harm to themselves, or, when you're affected, you're not the only person affected. You're affecting everybody around you, right? It's like if you have cancer, everyone around you feels bad for you, even though you're the one going through chemo. It's the entire family's in it, right, with you.
Right.
So what do you think would be the one thing maybe you could share that people out there who are going through something, okay, this should be your go-to? That doesn't make it right, but it's what you think that should be their go-to.
Yeah, for me, definitely 100%. I wouldn't have reached out to therapy. I would have thought, I don't have time. I wouldn't reach out for pills because that's not my go-to first thing anywhere in my life, right? Even if I have a headache, I'll do everything else before taking pills. I always say I meditate before medicate, right? I'm highly meditated, right? Like highly meditated.
A little bit of both before you came.
Well, not with pharmaceuticals.
Okay. We're not going to get into it. It's not that type of show.
Different show.
Different show.
But I think the biggest thing is, I mean, and speaking to what you're doing now, the biggest thing is to have someone who you respect, right? Like we said, the grade 2 is looking at the grade 3 like you're a god. They're not looking at the 15-year-old and saying, "Show me, a wise one." Everyone's looking for their Yoda. Everyone's looking for their Yoda. The person who says, "I've been there. I know what that feels like. I know the way out." That's the biggest thing. And so it's a person who you respect, a person who's been there, a person who's walked the same path or close enough to that same path to know, okay, if they can get through that, I can get through that.
Right. So it is communication for you.
100%.
Right. So that's what it
Right,
comes
but
down to.
it's a mentor. For me, it's a mentor. I wouldn't be able to go to a therapist who has never experienced the kind of darkness that I'd experienced, like the kind of thing that I'd experienced. Now, if I happen to hear about a therapist and someone says, "Oh, she's got a story much like you. She experienced that," but I've never resonated with someone who got their experience from a book
Right.
or from a course or from a university degree to sit there, and say to me, "I empathize with I need to."
So personal connection, personal.
100%, and that's
Okay.
why, like back when I was in the women's empowerment movement, I think the Me Too movement was built in many ways on faulty ground. I think in its inception, it was the greatest thing for women.
Right. Like
In-
many things.
Like
that are out-
many things,
Many things
get
that are out there,
derailed,
right? I mean,
exactly.
anything that has
Exactly.
a hashtag to it is bound to fail. Hashtag pricklypearshow.com. Right? Everything. Right? But you know what? I don't care. No one's paying me for this. The advertisers are not giving
Well,
me any money.
you don't make it a hashtag then. Make it an ampersand.
Yeah,
Be
you-
like, it's not a hashtag.
You
it's
must
not real.
you
Right.
must play with it. But no, but the reality is that the ideas are always great, but it's
Yeah.
the way it's actually implemented, which becomes a problem. Like
Right.
Oh,
But
we-
at the time, it was so necessary. I mean,
Yeah.
in its inception,
Definitely.
in its ideal.
yeah,
Right. Not
No,
the
absolutely.
idea. The ideal
Absolutely.
is that to hear women talking about like, "Hey, me too. Oh, you too. But I wouldn't have thought you too. Or me too. You too."
yeah.
Very powerful.
Me
Very
too. Me
powerful.
too. I also have something to offer on this one, but I want to
Yeah,
hear.
they're like,
definitely,
listen, don't
definitely.
make jokes.
No,
I mean,
I'm
like
not
men,
making. It's people that know me. A lot of it is real, but
Yeah.
being a man, you cannot say something like that because it sounds
That's
weird.
probably the
that,
next
well, yeah.
wave should be.
Yeah, it's
is
going to be
men-
me three,
men's-
something along those lines.
Yeah.
So in terms of yours, like what was your, or what is it that you can pitch to people and say, this is the go-to. This is the go-to to be able to get out of this situation, because really it's the first step, right? It's sort of like before you go to the gym, you're like, oh man, I gotta get up, I gotta go, I gotta pack, I gotta shower, I gotta do all this. But once you're at the gym, you're like, okay, this is amazing. Like,
Yeah.
why do I not come here every day? And then the next day, you go through the same thing, right?
Yeah, for me, very similar. It's the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's the conversation. I was never interested in pharmaceuticals myself. I didn't want to have some sort of like chemically rebalanced brain.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's the conversation. It's the mentor. It's finding somebody who sees you, who's willing to sit in the darkness with you,
Mm-hmm.
and then walk out at your pace with you. Yeah.
Is it
that's-
someone you
that's-
know, or could it be someone that you don't?
I think it's personal preference. I would say, I would estimate that a lot of the times it's easier to be really honest and really transparent or even vulnerable with somebody that you don't know so
Mhm.
well. You know, maybe somebody that is the extent of your relationship with them, and you don't have to see them outside.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I am definitely in favor of vulnerability and conversations, and I'm very much about changing all the outdated, ridiculous stereotypes that men get boxed into,
Mhm.
and things that you said twice already have suggested that you feel it too. For me, the conversation is the primary thing, and maybe the hardest thing to allow yourself to do.
There's a lot of people out there that call me on a regular basis for help. Ever since I put on the show, and I'm going to show something a little bit later. And I've been I most of the time I'm not really friends with these people. Like, they're people I know, and I don't look at the friendship as a reason for me to help them, right? I don't need to be their best friend. I just need to be an ear and to try and assist as much as I can. But I feel that most of them are very upset people, that the people they care for most are not there for them. Like, meaning, like, I would love to go to my mom. I would love to go to my sister. I would love to go to, where are all my best friends who were always there when we went to party and bar mitzvahs and funerals and whatnot. And now they're not there when I really need them. So,
But is that, do you suppose that's the truth, or is that their perception?
Yeah.
Because I felt like that also. But the reason I felt like that is mostly because I had shut everybody out.
okay.
Right?
Totally.
I
totally.
within myself, I
Yeah.
decided that I couldn't go to those people, and I mean, there was some basis in fact there. There was some reality about it. But
Right.
For myself, I decided that I couldn't have that conversation, so I didn't try.
Right.
Mhm.
And then I became locked in that pattern of, well, who do I talk to? And there was no relief.
Now that, we keep going back to the pandemic, I don't want to time this, like,
Yeah.
give it
Timestamp it.
T- exactly. I don't want to
Yeah.
timestamp the show, but we can't be social. It's almost impossible. Like
You're
to
the
come.
first people I've seen. You're
Well,
first
that-
humans
well,
I've
that's the
seen
thing.
that
Like,
are not
we
in
had
the
to
immediate
come
family.
in. The mask. I was able to take off the mask because we're vaccinated, right? All of a sudden,
Right.
don't even get me back on the passport situation. I'll lose my, what. But we're at a point where people have never suffered up until now. Like, they kind of everything was great. Like, and when they heard the word mental health, they thought like, oh, everyone, these people have issues. And all of a sudden they're in a situation, and all of a sudden they're stuck at home with their family, and they know what like, for example, teachers know, like, we hang out with the kids, we know what they're like. Now they're home with you. Now you know what it's all about.
Yeah.
So what do we see from society today? Getting over the mental health situation, or when we're dealing with a pandemic where we can't be social, where we can't go out and see people, where we can't, do the things that we used to do. I mean, yeah, things are a little bit easier today than they were a year ago, but it's just a matter of time. And not only that, every time that there is sort of like, okay, we're going into wave number 4, people are already getting another anxiety, and they're like, okay,
Yeah.
who else am I going to reach to, and who's going to be there the next time I call? So the question really here is, what do you think people should be doing or planning for in terms of the mental health world? Like, meaning, where should they get help at this moment in time?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the next or the next endemic. Like, and for those of us who have the means to I'm sure every single person, without knowing, I'm sure you all have good Wi-Fi, and I'm sure you've got good computers at home.
Right.
And I'm sure that there's a lot of people who don't have access to that,
Mm-hmm.
especially teenagers. I know I talked to my son. I have 3 kids. One of my sons is 16, and he was telling me so many of his friends, like, when I was a kid, you'd hear about that one kid who committed suicide.
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
it would come up once in a while, and people were really worried about mental health for teenagers because it is that age where, you're kind of feeling invincible, and there's an egoic stage that you go through of sort of like it's all about them. It's all about yourself as a
Right.
teenager. So that's already a weird stage, a weird age to go through, and this isolation now. And they're all, my son was telling me that there's a lot of mental health issues, especially a lot of eating disorders that are coming out right now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of his friends, you hear through the grapevine, he hears about a lot of people who are either trying to commit, who are, going.
We're talking
into
about children here. Like,
We're talking about
teenagers. We still
Teenagers are
have 60, 70, 80 years left in their life,
Yeah.
and already think this is the end.
Well, I think that there's going to be a huge awareness.
Being a
you know.
teenager is very emotionally intense all by
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
Right.
So now you take that sort of natural, earth-shattering intensity that a lot of teenagers go through. I did.
Yeah.
And let's
And
not
you-
forget raging
you-
hormones, and
Exactly.
you have no outlet for them.
I still
Now
have
you
those.
compress
It's,
it. You compress it into self-isolation, staying at home, no physical contact, Zoom meetings for everything.
Right.
It's like, yeah, it's a boiling cauldron.
Well, what do we do? I mean, I know that some of the schools, they implement, meditation. There's, like a nurse you could talk to,
Yeah.
right? I mean, but it's all like, fluff in the cappuccino. It's just, it's not really dealing with the issue, in my opinion. Like, what is it you think we should be doing? And as responsible adults,
I mean, I would argue that meditation has been proven to be quite effective in schools. and
100%.
I'm not.
children.
So I don't know if it sounded like I was mocking meditation.
Yeah.
I'm not mocking meditation at all.
I
just,
laughed.
I
but
just,
only because
Yeah.
I laughed only because of the previous conversation. Like we kind of segued from these kids with raging hormones and like raging testosterone, and sort of like, hey kids, meditate.
yeah, that's gonna fix your problem. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
No, but I'm totally pro meditation. But you know,
Well, that's the
there's-
thing. It's and this is my problem. I think with society today, and why I want to have the show. I think that society as a whole is putting band-aids on everything. And you know, you have a broken leg, let me put a band-aid. Well, it's not bleeding; it's a broken leg. It's like people will. It's just for the people, just for people to see. No, so I'm all for it, and I'm all for meditation, and I meditate myself. I actually meditated today, you know, in the back before I got here because I was sweating like crazy. I was like, stop sweating, stop sweating, stop sweating. Didn't work, but I want to know, what is it, something concrete that really we can develop or put in the school system, or even let parents know what they can do to try and help their children. Like I'm noticing that a lot of families, because they're suffering themselves,
yeah.
are not giving the kids the attention that the
Yeah.
kids need. And all they're giving them is the negative attention of saying it's bad, mental health, like, you know, like I see them talking about it, but not doing anything about it as a family. Do you have any suggestions for something for families to do, especially if we have the fourth wave?
Turn off the TV. Stop watching the
Turn off TV.
goddamn news. And,
Right.
And just, talk to each other.
How else are we going to learn whether vaccines work or not? Right.
Well, I mean,
I haven't
what
had
I
TV
am
in
thinking
years.
of
I
is, like, I have a day job,
Yeah.
right, and we have some big screen TVs in the lunchrooms,
Right.
in the cafeteria that are always on. They're
Mhm.
always sort of having the news, like
CP24, of course.
Yeah, and
That raises your stress
every
levels.
single time,
that
yeah,
raises your
exactly.
stress levels,
Every
even if
single
you're
time I walk
ignoring it.
past the TV,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like COVID, emergency, be scared, run away,
Right.
crazy. It's fear mongering all the time,
Right.
and there's never any breaks.
But here's the thing. I'm not as there's a useful fear. Like fear is actually a great catalyzer for movement. Right? There's
Always
stress
been. It's
and
always
there's
been.
eustress,
Always been, for sure.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's
Fear
the
is-
whole
Fear is the best motivator.
100%, but that's the whole, you don't need smaller problems, you need bigger shoulders. Right? Like we are here in this challenging time, but
It's very
on-
oversold, in my opinion.
well, but we're not talking about the fear that comes from those screens that go like fear the next wave and fear and stay in your homes and be fearful. But there's also this, like we have actually collectively made this agreement to come in at this time. I mean, humanity has never in recorded history gone through a full century without some sort of natural disaster, some sort of world war, or some sort of epidemic of some sort, right?
Right.
Like, so we've actually kind of
Correct, yeah.
raised
D-
in on
definitely,
this,
definitely.
on
Yeah.
this like smooth sailing
Best
ship.
time in my life, 2019, just before everything else.
But guess what? What's that saying? Rough seas don't make a good sailor. Or sorry, smooth seas don't make a good
seas
sailor. Don't a
Don't
good
make
sailor
good
make,
sailors,
right?
Yeah,
We're actually like we're gearing up to become really great sailors in some really rough waters.
agreed.
And I mean, if a sailor is on the sea, not feeling a tinge of fear when they see those big tsunamis coming in, I mean, they know the
might be
reality, but
crazy.
it's not a fear that's gonna calibrate their brain
Right.
to go into fight or flight or freeze. It's going to be an action, right? We are all actually catalyzing right now. So that, to get back to your question, how do you get your kids to stop being fearful of that, that CP24 or the announcements?
That's what concerns me the
is-
most is the younger kids that are growing up in this environment right now. 'cause
Yeah, but
they're going to-
channel that fear that they're already feeling, like that they're engulfed in right now.
But you see, you guys-
channel that into something adventurous, into something like beyond. What are we looking at to go beyond this? I mean, how are we going to re-educate, recalibrate our society? How are we going to take this challenge and look at how we're going to sail through this? And then it becomes exciting. right? It's scare sighting.
But it's
It's
the
like you
in
take
my
the
opi-
fear and you make it excitement.
in my opinion, though, it's not necessarily the kids. It's how the parents react to it.
yeah, same thing with the parents, yeah.
Well, and that's the issue. That I think it's the parents who are doing it to the children. No, I'm being serious here. Like I think if the
Story of
parents
every
were if the
generation.
parents were calmer during the situation, the kids will be calmer. But the parents are instilling fear, right? Like,
100%.
like I have the right to say to someone, "Go f yourself." I'm not putting on the mask or
Yeah.
whatever it is. The kid cannot do that. Like his parents made him do it. They told him his hands are tied.
Yeah, no,
we're
I was
adults.
At,
We can
I was
do
at
it.
the bookstore with my daughter the other day, or actually just yesterday, and there's a parent screaming at their child, "Be quiet!"
Yeah.
I'm like, do you get the irony in that? I mean, there's
Yeah,
like, "Be quiet!"
Right. Yelling to have them to
Stop
right,
being
right.
so stressed.
Absolutely. My parents used to beat me to say not to beat other people. That was just like only I can do it. No, but I'm going to go back to the parents part because we all kind of, we are sort of what our parents used, how we grew up in our houses, right? Like
Unless
I become
you break that generation.
right,
curse.
right. I didn't. I didn't.
Generational
I just sat for dinner with my parents and I realized how much I'm like them, like both, literally, like, and only the worst stuff, not the good stuff, only the bad stuff I took from them. but how is it that the parents what kind of tools can the parents get to be able to work with their children to make them feel a little bit better? And I think some parents they bring the medication, right, because they don't know what to do.
I think there's no end to the tools that parents could get, but they have to be willing to seek those tools and implement those tools. They have to be in a position, in an empowered position where they feel good about learning those tools, bringing those tools to their children, right? Lifting everyone up, including themselves. And all you can really do is make those tools as available as possible and make them as visible, as easy to find as possible.
So
right?
where?
Through
So-
conversations like this, through as many people like us standing up and
Mhm.
talking about it and offering our services. Only then are you going to be able to empower adults who may be set in their ways, may be unwilling to imagine that they're less than perfect. And then you can begin to create a generation after generation of change.
Both of you work. You work with a men's group. Am I correct? And I believe you work with a ladies
I
group.
work with men.
Can you tell me a little bit about it?
one-on-one.
Yeah.
Sure. I work with men as a coach. I work with men in the sense that I have my own podcast. I create a lot of resources for men to use as tools to grow with, to expand themselves on. I do one-on-one coaching, and to your original comment, I also lead a men's group. So I'm doing a lot of very related but different things, all within the idea of lifting up other men.
Could you tell me a little bit more about it? And what I mean by that is, why did you get into it? Why did you feel that this was something necessary? Why men in particular? Why not men and women? What led you to want to do something? By the way, I know many people that are doing the exact same thing, and I always wondered, like, what made someone say, you know what, I want to help other men kind of get over their fears and problems in
Sure.
their marriage and whatnot. Like, what led you to want to do that?
My breakdown led me to it. Being suddenly waking up to who I had been and why I had been that person caused me to realize how out of balance I was.
Mhm.
And then when I decided to do something about it, when I decided to present the real me to the world without all the facades and without all the second guessing and the bullshit, the response that I got from everyone that I met was incredible. It was just like, it was joyous.
Mhm.
And I realized what I'd been missing, what I'd been robbing myself of, all for my entire life, basically. So for me, I am in the men's empowerment space because I'm a man, because particularly when I needed help the most, I found it impossible to see. I was drowning in my own beliefs and my own pain, and I didn't know what to do about it. And there was nothing, that was obvious enough for me to make the leap of faith and say, okay, let me try this. I had to just run myself into the ground. before I was willing to put in the effort to find the help that I needed.
What was your purpose? Because usually it has a lot to do with purpose, right? You have like usually it's people have children and they're going, you know what, this is my reason for living. Whether it's right or wrong, they have a purpose.
Sure.
What was your purpose? What was your purpose to continue on with your day? And was it maybe to help others? Maybe some people do that where they, feel like I was going through something, I'm going to assist. There you go. I have a purpose in my life. What was your purpose?
I've made it my mission in life to live as the best and most free version of myself that I can, and to lead by example and guide other men into that same freedom and empowerment. My purpose was that I do have children, and I made a huge mess on the way out of that life. I hurt them. I hurt my ex. It's like I don't feel good about that at all. And so my kids were a huge part of my motivation to be a better man. And the realization that so many other men must be in a similar place, on a similar self-destructive path where they feel confined by our typical our male stereotypes. They feel like they can't ask for help. They don't know how to get out of that box that they're in. So for me, it was a natural thing, and I was so excited and so amazed by the change that I saw in myself and the change that I experienced in the way other people were responding to me, that I had to share it. I had to take it to the world.
How did that make you feel, knowing that maybe the first person that you helped, seeing that first person kind of saying thank you to you? Describe that feeling.
I mean, the very first person, it's an amazing feeling. It's a beautiful feeling, and it's a wonderful experience to see the light come on. Just to observe the shift in another person, and they're like, oh, maybe I can go a different way. Maybe there is some light at the end of the tunnel. I will say that I've experienced that, but also a little bit of insecurity within myself still. Like, who am I? Okay, I helped this guy. That's great, but who am I really?
Right.
I was still building into it, growing into it, But certainly, it's an amazing feeling. I've had that many times since, and I love it. It's like an addiction. It's the best feeling in the world.
Sometimes, personally, you seem to forget about your own problems, right? Like, there's a person watching right now, I'm not going to mention the name, who reached out to me, and I had a minor stroke playing basketball. Very minor, but it happened. The place was very, very hot, and my lips started going down. It was just like one of those horrible feelings. And ever since then, I didn't play basketball, and basketball was sort of this place that I would be, and I would forget about the world, and it would just be an amazing place. But all of a sudden, basketball became a place that was a place of fear. And I'd be like, ooh, what if this happens again? And the next time it's going to last for way, way longer. So when I spoke to this friend and I kept offering him, go out and do something, I said, why don't we play ball together? And at that moment, I forgot that, this is something that, that's a fear of mine. Right. But in order to help him, I was willing to play basketball to make him feel good, and I forgot about my own fears.
We'll always do more for others than we'll do for ourselves.
And that's something, and that's really about this community, right? That's really about the mental health community, because if you would have asked me 5-6 years ago about the mental health community, I have no connection to it. Like, my mom worked in a mental institution. That's as far as it went. But all of a sudden, being a part of it and seeing the community and wanting to help. I grew closer to people as a whole, and I started having less ego. It was less about me, more about other people, and I loved this new me. You do a lot of different things. You are involved in helping many, many people. You have a daughter that you're very connected to. You wrote a book with her. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your story, more in depth when it comes to how you deal with situations, because you're always collaborating with someone.
Always. Yeah, I love collaboration. I actually literally love
I know, because every time I see it's you and someone, and there's always,
I love to be on a crew. I love to be part of crew. I literally, that's in
Talk
my,
about that
in
because
my bones.
the reason I'm bringing this up is I know there's a lot of people out there who are very much right now they're stuck within themselves. They're sort of
Yeah.
like, how do I get out?
Right.
But it's
right.
really well once you find that there's other people out there who are just as willing,
Yeah.
things are going to become much easier. And
100%.
you did that with your daughter.
Well, I did that. I actually, so it's a great segue because that's actually.
Thank
what
you.
I'm-
That's my job.
You're,
Yeah.
you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
10
Thank
out
you.
of
Hey,
10,
hey,
10 out of
1,
10.
1, 2,
Hey,
3.
10 out of 10 on 10.
Ah! Love it, love it. We
That
need to
was-
get more
that was-
buttons.
yeah, we got-
more buttons.
we got to push some buttons.
Absolutely.
We always know how to push their buttons.
You're going to take me to a really bad place. So
I'm
let's.
t-
So let's.
I gotta tell.
let-
my
let's not.
friends in high school called me Mervert because there's one friend in your circle who always gets like
Yeah.
makes it perverted. That's me.
Never ask my friends how they describe me. There we go. We're doing the
Joe,
score.
we know how to press buttons.
Okay, so I really want to hear it. I think this is something incredible.
So I started I started writing way back in high school. I mean, my
Dear Penthouse?
well, listen, as an outlet, I'm not.
All right. Hey, she took me there. I just wanted to say one little joke
Listen.
and move off of it. There you go. But I'm pumped. All right, keep going. Keep going.
You're waiting for Joe to
That's
make
it.
that.
That's it. Now it's.
Press some buttons. Press some buttons, Joe.
Ah, there we go. That was for you, Joe. Absolutely.
That'll be like our little thing. Every time you make a perverted joke, it's like, "Hey, Joe, did you miss that? Did you
All
get
you
that
gotta
one?"
do is do it.
The horn. Yeah, he's laughing because I know he's gonna say blow the horn. I get it. I know.
I don't think he was going to go that route. He's like, I can't believe we went that route to begin with.
Yeah,
It's,
listen. Everyone needs a friend like a friend who'll turn everything into something dirty. But so I started writing a long time ago, actually, and I was actually ghostwriting and helping people with their stories, and wrote for a few different facets, but always kept it as a side gig. And then over the years, there was a book that I really wanted to get out, an experience that happened to me, and I wrote a fictional novel, and that had me get picked up by a publisher, and the publisher started training me in how to write books, and I wrote my second book, which was a nonfiction, which was to help women in the women's empowerment space prior to Me Too. I was on this leading edge of this cusp of this wave that was coming in.
Was it because of a personal experience, or was it more like just
The writing?
the
or
writing about that?
100%.
Personal, okay.
They say write what you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if you're
absolutely.
writing about aliens falling in love on the planet Zevron, it is what you know.
Yeah. No,
right?
I know
Like
those
you're-
aliens. On
right,
the
you
planet
know-
Zevron. Zevron, you
exact-
said? Yeah, I know them. Yes.
That's-
Personal experience.
That's exactly from that, planet many, many, many timelines ago. So I'm writing, and I'm doing all this, writing and going and speaking and helping women all around the world to tell their stories, right?
Right.
Coaching with women. And one of the and as I'm doing that, helping all these women around the world, then my daughter turns to me and says, "Mama, I want to write a book with you." And she was 9 years old, and so I was kind of like, "Ah!"
Right.
you know,
Dream
here
come
I-
true.
Oh, here I am, helping all these women all around the world, and my number one woman
Right.
gets inspired because she'd been watching me write books and storyboard, and she was very specific. Mama, I want to write a book with you. It has to have a front cover and a back cover and an acknowledgement page, and we have to have a book launch party. We're like,
She's your
She's
daughter.
been studying it.
she's an editor in
yeah,
chief.
yeah.
Like she's been studying, me, right? Like talk about you never know who's watching.
Right.
She's been watching.
Right.
And so we wrote our book, and we raised money for autism awareness, and had this great, amazing journey that had me coming back into the airline that I worked for, and I'm not going to mention names because I don't know what happened to your
Air
baggage
Canada.
in 1992. I don't know.
Air Canada. Air Canada.
So
Air Canada.
I don't know what happened to your ticket, and I can't get you a refund. I
Air
mean,
Canada.
all like.
It's all right. We know. We know.
So, but that was beautiful because it actually allowed me to start this initiative at the airline that I work for that I'm not going to
Air
mention.
Canada.
That was called Open Skies for Autism, where we took children on the autism spectrum on a simulated flight all around the airport. And amazing, of course,
Yeah.
we were approved to go in every single city in Canada and in cities in the U.S., and we even got approval for London Heathrow. Of course, that was in 2019.
Right.
And then
Those were the days.
whew, back in those days. Anyway, it opened up so many doors. But in the meantime, when I was still on as a side gig, as a side hustle, coaching with women, and every single woman that I coached, it ended up that she would write a book. Every single woman without fail. Some of them wrote books that became movies. Some of them wrote books that became New York Times bestsellers. Some of them, like, it was part of that part about that getting your story out, telling your story, and then how to write the book and how to put that story in a sequence. And so with that, the biggest thing that I kept being asked was, can you help me write my book? And it was like, well, of course I can then. And so that actually became like a natural progression and a natural outpouring of what I was already doing. And when I went to the first Tony Robbins thing, it clicked. There's my business. And actually, I started a business called Maverick Productions, Inc., your one-stop shop for all your publishing needs. And I help aspiring authors. I help, I call it the rebels and the healers and the thought leaders to write, publish, and profit from their books and become best-selling authors.
And you wrote a book about how to write a book.
Yeah,
also,
I wrote a
right?
book called,
So
Go Write Your Damn Book Already. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends liked it on Facebook, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I actually love it, and I'm actually going to come back with another one. There's a little caveat with when you put a swear word, which damn is considered a swear word because, Yeah. So I'm actually going to... What's that?
Did you have to change one of the letters to?
No, well, it doesn't approve it. There's quite a lot of places where it approves it, quite a lot that it doesn't, and it's one of those that you need to navigate it. Anyway, it will be coming out again in a new
So
name.
your daughter became your inspiration in some ways, right?
100%.
And
all three of my kids are inspirations. Like, I don't want it to be just because I wrote a book.
Yeah, no.
My sons worked at our book launch party. We had the mayor of our town come to the book launch party. Like, it was
very nice.
All three kids, they were instrumental, right? When you have kids, you can't talk about one without talking about the others.
You can. My parents talk about my sister all the time. I'm used to it. I'm used to it. It's okay. I accept. What stage of that is? Just to accept the fact that I am the black sheep of the family. Some radio show that I run.
You should call it black sheep of the family.
It's been taken already. I tried. What I want to know is you were inspired by your kids. Okay, so I'm just going to say kids, but at the same time, it's sort of like a ball, like it kind of always rolls, or a tire or whatnot, like it always rolls. So now, and you're passing it on to somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. Sort of like the pandemic, right? And how it's spread, we still don't know. But what can we do in order to get the ball rolling, to really impact the world? Like something big for us to do. Have you guys ever thought about like
creating a movement?
Like
yes.
I know, but there's like many movement. But like I'm talking again, hashtag it and you'll ruin it, right? What can we really do to really impact the next generation and also reteach the parents of today? As I said before, I think the parents are the problem. I don't think it's the kids. I think it's the parents that instill those fears in the kids. Kids want to just play and have a good time, and it's the parents who are so worried about them. What is it you think that we can do as a society to really make a positive impact? Have you ever thought about, this is your opportunity to maybe talk about any ideas you've come up with at home with your family.
Yeah,
I know I'm putting you on the spot for this.
Yeah,
but
really, like you could have.
Well, there's.
No.
I've thought about things for sure. I've thought about what else can we do, and I did a movement that I wanted to put together.
What was your movement?
I already forget the name of it because it was 4 years ago, and I kind of moved off from the whole thing. No, but it was Out of Darkness, right? And it's sort of like spreading the light, right? And just spreading the light and having people being able to talk about what they're going through. Without judgment, just sort of, and writing a book is one of those things, right? Because people express themselves through journals, and 100%. They talk about their own. And once you start writing, you let those feelings out. Like if I'm really hurt, I cry. To let it out, I almost do it on purpose.
Yeah.
And the reason I do it is because now I've done it. I took it out, and now I'm good. I can move on with my day.
Purged.
Right. Or punch a wall or something. I'm letting it out. What would be the outlet, in your opinion, that that we can bring to the world and say, okay, this thing can work. This big project can really get things moving. Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, I actually,
the inspiration that I had is like that, right? The brand that I created, Live More, is that kind of thing. It was always from the moment it came to me, I saw it as a global entity, right? My intention is to bring visibility and let's say a certain cool factor to personal development in a way that it's never been done before.
Mhm.
Create the kind of visibility where you can be walking down the street and maybe you get the logo on a t-shirt, you get some that kind of visibility like Nike, where you can just see it kind of everywhere, and it sparks the conversation, or I see you walking down the street and it's like, hey man, cool,
Right.
we know what it's about. That's what I'm doing, that's what I'm building.
So
Yeah.
we have a Bell Let's Talk here in Toronto.
Yeah, I want
Right.
to say my movement though.
Please.
I mean, just
No, I'd rather hear you than me talk. So go ahead, please.
But you actually touched on it about the writing the book. It's
Yeah.
Not only is it cathartic, not only do you get to self-express, but I actually truly believe every single person should write a book.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe, back in the 50s, you knew you were in business because you had a business card,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you'd go and you'd so nervously go to the printer and you'd say, I'd like it like this. And if you go to networking meetings, or you knew you were in business, you had a business card. Today, it's a book. But I don't just say it because of business. Like, it would be a really low bar for me to set.
Right.
To say that it's
Well, no,
just for business.
forget about a book. It's a story. It's tell your story.
Tell your story. I meet so many people
Mm.
who don't have access, who don't think that they can write a book, and I can see it. If they just knew how easy it is, right now, Netflix and Hulu and
Mm-hmm.
all of those are scouring the internet,
Mm-hmm.
looking for books to pick up, whether it be narrative nonfiction, like a personal story, a memoir,
Mm-hmm.
or, I mean, look at the success of Squid Game, right? Like, they're actively out there looking for these gems. The next wave is going to be, we're going to start seeing kind of like the anomaly or the phenomenon that was Justin Bieber, sort of just picking up a guitar and strumming on YouTube and getting picked up by Jay-Z and going like, there's some raw talent there.
Yeah.
The next wave is going to be people, young, old, anywhere in between. I just actually read a New York Times article about an art teacher who was 50 years old who just dropped her first book, self-published it, just got picked up by a Netflix series,
Mhm.
like debut book. This is literally the next wave, is all these people coming out with their stories of triumph, their stories of going into the fire and coming out
Right.
with the spoils, with the gold, with the stories,
Yeah.
and they are actively out there looking to match the visual medium with the storytelling. So strong storytelling is going to be the next.
But this
wave.
it turns into more of an ego thing, right? I mean, I want a Netflix series, and like I want to put it out there.
Well, let's talk about mental health.
Right.
Let's talk about how we can empower. How if
Mhm.
more of us are asking
Mhm.
for that visual medium, for that Netflix to be inspiring
Right.
stories,
Right.
to
Right.
be stories of triumph, to be stories of
Mhm.
like, I went into the fire and I came out to be able to tell that men can cry, men
Right.
can be
But
vulnerable. I mean,
how are
there's
they using it? And that's it's like
Yeah.
somebody made a movie and it's great and it's very popular today, but how are you using it to help children? How are you using it to help the next generation? Like
Well, I
Like,
mean,
what
in
it- like-
in a story like, let's say, Cheryl Strayed's Wild, for instance.
Okay.
I mean, I know I'm talking about like probably a movie that you haven't seen.
I
But,
have not.
but it helped Eat, Pray, Love
Yes.
helped a lot of people.
Yes.
Have helped a lot of people to not only sort of live this vicarious dream of traveling, but a woman solo traveling, going through a divorce, like it, feeling like gaining weight, ripped off. I mean, they touched on a lot of things that people and
What was
her
the lesson?
primarily
What was the
women.
lesson? What was the lesson there?
The lesson was that she rebirthed herself into she had an egoic death. She got a divorce,
Mhm.
had this dark night of the soul, kind of like what you were talking about as a man, not recognizing yourself and who are you and what are you stepping away from, and having this really like egoic death, and then a rebirth. If you're going to be reborn now from the ashes, from the nothing, then what are you going to be reborn into? And now the world is open to you.
Yeah.
So in Eat, Pray, Love, as an example, it's the world, literally world travel to 3 different places, for the food, or sort
Mhm.
of the corporeal, the physical experience of Italy, to the emotional experience and the spiritual experience of India, to then in the end, the Indonesian element was the really friendship and falling in love and the romance.
Do you feel that to use Eat, Pray, Love as an example, do you feel that it's relatable? Like what I was thinking as you were speaking
Right.
is that is that a movie like that at least will spark some conversation. It will inspire people. I see a lot of stuff on Netflix that inspires me, you know, because
Right.
that's what I choose to watch. And I loved that movie.
Did
Eat,
you?
Pray,
Good.
Love was
Yeah.
phenomenal. I loved it. So my question is now, though, do you feel like it's really relatable in the sense that you know a regular person can watch it and be inspired by it, but also feel like that's something that they could do themselves?
Yeah, so like the person who can't do eat, pray, love, they do eat, stay, love, right? Because they can't go traveling. But it's kind of like, listen, it's kind of like eat, pray, love. Lightning hit it in 7 different ways, right? Kind of like Jack Kerouac's On the Road. I mean, we've always had books that take this experience, travel experience, this vagabond kind of vagabond story, and make it this beautiful spiritual evolution of thought. People have always been drawn to that because it's a vicarious trip that they've taken, because they're like, gosh, I wish I could do that too, but I've got kids, I got laundry,
Yeah.
I've got dishes, I mean, I've got bills to pay.
So if you're watching it and you're in a position of thinking, gosh, I wish that I could do that, does it bring you closer to that sort of awakening, or does it send you further away from it because you're like, oh, I wish I could, but you kind of settle into that, well, that's not, I can't.
Well, that's the
I
first
just
thing that
is.
somebody does, right? The first thing is like, I can't do it.
Well, or
Right? Like, I wish I could. And it's really about, again, I wish I could go to a gym and eat healthy and all that. I
Yeah.
wish I could, but you
and
need
then
the motivation.
somewhere in there, I mean, there's a Zen saying, an old adage that is, you know, after the ecstasy, laundry. Right? Like that how do you bridge that? I mean, in the ancient, you know, in Buddhism, it was you were either the Buddha, you know, going right,
Enlightenment.
or you were a householder.
Mhm.
You had to leave your home. In the Kabbalah, they would
Yeah.
say you can't study until you're 45 and you've fulfilled your obligation of raising 3 kids, right?
Something along those lines, but sure. Yeah.
That was
yeah,
the criteria,
yeah.
right? That you cannot go into these mystical, otherworldly, metaphysical arts until you fulfilled that, you know, or either fulfilled or absconded from the fulfillment of any household chores.
So interesting you brought it. It's going to segue to something else.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
about, and it's something both of you have shared, and I think maybe I have too, about loving yourself. About you know, like before I want to help others, at the same time it has to really be about me, right? Like you probably went through about a year or two of getting to know yourself again,
Absolutely.
right? And that's really what it comes down to. So before we were worried about other people like our family and how to help them, once you help yourself and you understand yourself, that's when you can be better. You can serve your family better, and you can be a better person. Talk to me a little bit about your personal growth. You know, what you went through during that time period where you had to learn a little bit about yourself. Like I learned, I'll give you something very quickly about my anxiety, where I used to feel a certain way, but I would never express it. It would only come when I'm angry, like I would say, like when I reached a point. But now I'm like, hey, I'm feeling very anxious. Can you just walk away from me just for a 2nd? Like, and that changes everything. Yeah, sure. Whereas before, I was like, you could see that I'm feeling anxious. Why are you here? Right? And that would like take me on a different route. So now I'm like, okay, I could say it, and that it doesn't always work, but I'm being more communicative, and now I know, and I try to do it as much as I can in my life. What is it? Maybe a lesson that you took during that period, and how you got to really learn about yourself as a human being before you're helping someone else.
Yeah.
What have you gone through during that time period where you said, I didn't even know I was like that. I didn't even know that this is what I was causing other people or even myself.
I didn't realize how didn't realize how little I thought of myself previously. I didn't realize how much the many of my choices. I didn't realize how much many of my choices were hurting me.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Do you mind giving an example of something, just so it makes it more real, maybe for the audience? Something particular, because we can talk, vaguely like, this thing, but something particular, something where you saw, okay,
Tangible.
I allowed my wife to yell at me, and say, curse at me at home and in front of the children and belittle me, and once I put a stop to that, I realized that okay, I'm better off for it, not because I want to hurt her feelings, but the way I'm being treated. Did I touch something?
You know, I have talked about my experiences a lot before. I've done a lot of writing,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I take your point
Mm-hmm.
about making it more real.
Mm-hmm.
I am just not entirely sure that I want to um, open myself up to the potential.
Well, it could be
uh,
anything. It could be. I
Yeah.
mean, again, I'm not here to put you on the spot for this, but what I feel personally is when someone shares something personal
Yeah.
about themselves, then the same way, someone will say, "Oh,
Yeah.
I think I'll share mine, and I get a feeling that you and I probably have the same because you mentioned something.
Sure.
I realize that when I get really high stressed, I go into myself. I'm a turtle, total
Mm.
like lone wolf turtle. I have a room like what other people would call their office.
mm-hmm.
Like men have a man cave. I have a womb.
Mm-hmm.
I have a womb. Right? It's my it's like my woman cave. It's
Mhm.
I call it my womb. And literally, metaphorically, figuratively, I go into my womb.
Mhm.
When I'm stressed, I go into my womb. And what I recognize, and that's just my coping mechanism, right? Like that's what it's always been. Is I get quiet, I go inside, right? The hard part of that is, and this is one of those growths and kind of like know yourself
Mhm.
as you go, is that what I came to realize, over many trials and errors, is that when I was doing that, the interpretation of the people all around me is that I didn't really like them. Right? I didn't want to be with them.
Okay."
I didn't really like them. I wasn't letting anyone in.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't letting anyone know that that's what I was needing.
Was that for everyone? I mean, or was that
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like I don't let anybody in.
okay?
And
No, because it could be particular people you're not letting in. But what if it's like your family and
Ooh,
still
so-
don't want them in?
100%.
Okay.
And so, I mean, especially with my family, it
Mhm.
becomes really hard because, like, they're the people, like, if I came and I had the wherewithal and the understanding of myself early enough and knowledgeable enough
Right.
to say, I feel safe with you guys, but I need to shut out the outside world, then at least they could understand that. But
Right.
almost, it's kind of like children, you push away the people who you feel safest with.
Mhm.
So it's almost like I would actually be able to be, to not be withdrawn from the outside world because I don't really need to be vulnerable with the outside world. I can be like this joker.
Right.
and
Right.
this-
Right.
you
The
know, like
facade
that's
that we
so-
put
I'd
on a
like-
regular basis.
Right,
Absolutely.
and everyone
Mhm.
going like, "Oh, you are just so.
Right.
You're such a ray of sunshine. You're such an inspiration." Like, and I'm going.
I never say that about you, but yes, you are. It's why you're
It's like
here.
that
It's
guy.
why you're here. It's why you're here.
Yeah, that was the first hit.
Hey.
That was the first hit.
Took an hour. I thought it was gonna happen after 5 minutes. I was like,
holding myself
I'm gonna
back.
be hit all night long.
I could. That costs extra. Sorry. This is
Really trying to keep quiet here.
so. So that's. I mean, that was part of the hardship. Is actually getting that and understanding that one of the things that I get when I get triggered, I go in, and that could be, I mean, that's a lot better than crack, right?
Right.
It's a lot better than right. It's like.
Some say otherwise. I don't know why.
I mean, it's like there are a lot of other coping mechanisms I
Right.
could have picked up. Like I
Right.
It's better.
Crack. You know.
I mean, okay, it's better. Whatever floats your boat. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
judging here.
No,
but, but it is a coping mechanism. But as I've gained knowledge and gone further down, it's not a coping mechanism that I'm looking to drop. But it is one that I can now say, "Excuse me, please don't have any consideration that this is anything to do with you.
With you.
I love you, and I need to go in." Why?
Yeah, I'm making eye contact with someone. Yes, because you're
'Cause I
speaking my
said,
language.
I love
That's
you,
right. That's right.
and now she's
There you go.
smiling.
There you go.
Yeah, and so that took a long time before I figured that part out.
Do you share those personal experiences with people, or do you try in your groups when you guys talk to people? Do you try to maybe not make it about yourself? You try to make it about just
Yeah, there's
overall.
very few people I share the real
Really?
depth with, but I do share. I have a group that I run called Right Club. It's kind of like Fight Club. We don't talk about Right Club.
Mhm. Right with a W?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no
That's
rules in
cool.
Right Club, but
Yeah.
there is one rule.
There's one rule. Okay.
We
What's the rule? I'd like to know the rule.
There are
now.
no rules.
Ah,
But
okay.
I say there are no rules with an R, but there are rules with a W. Like we do have.
Is this for women only, the Right Club, or
You
can
know,
men join this?
Men
right?
can definitely
Okay, cool.
join it, but I've kept
Cool.
it very. As it began, and then it became a digital product. That's I'm actually looking to start this big movement of having it kind of like NaNoWriMo, which is the National November Writers Month or Writing Month, where you write a novel. But here I am putting this out to say, write anything: nonfiction, prescriptive nonfiction, memoir, narrative nonfiction, or fiction, or fan fiction. Like I love writing like little flash fiction or fan fiction. I share things with them because that's transformative for me. And I actually feel that the power of sharing it with them, when you share it with one person, you create this ripple effect. And when you step into that, then you give your story, gives them permission to share their story. And so then they start sharing it in their ripples and
It's the
their,
same thing I've done in my men's group.
yeah. So we're just pebbles in the pond and ever expanding.
I definitely want to talk about Bell Let's Talk. I know there was no segue to that, but I just because I know there were a lot of other stuff I want to say, but I want to talk about Bell Let's Talk, and a lot of people know that you call in, and I think it was with the end of January, right? You donate money, and there is an organization, they're making a lot of money. What did they really do?
Yeah, good question.
I mean,
someone should answer that.
but it's strange to me that so many people are advocates for it, myself included in some ways, right? I'd be like, oh, Bell Let's Talk, but I don't really know what they're doing. I know there's the CAMH. I know that and also they don't have enough room for a lot of people there, and it's very I think they have maybe like 30 rooms or 40 rooms for a city that has 5 million people. Maybe I'm getting the numbers wrong, but let's go to 100. Let's go to 100 in case someone's
Let's
going
just
to say,
make up
let's just make up numbers. I actually, the truth is I did know the numbers, but I forgot them.
What was the aliens falling in love in which planet was that?
It doesn't really matter.
Zevron?
Zevron.
Let's just-
It's what you
CAMH
said.
has all
I know
room
them.
on Zevron.
No,
Yeah.
but for real, I don't know what is it that they really do, and everyone today even is talking about mental health. Well, if you need help, where do you go? You call them, and what?
Yeah.
What happens? Because I can tell you what happened to me. I called, and they called me 3 months after and put me on some
What?
list, and
Really?
I could have probably killed myself 15 times prior
Well,
to that
I know
situation.
friends who work on who actually volunteer on suicide prevention lines,
Right.
not necessarily CAMH.
Right, it's a
or
little
Bell-
bit different. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the friends who I know who actually work on the lines are very touched and affected by who they help. So I don't know
Well,
specifically which
I
organization.
want to put this out to the audience because Joe, do we have people writing in right now at all during the show? Like, do we have anyone who is involved in some capacity? Maybe they have a question. Yes, perfect. Joe, are you actually able to maybe read something out? Is it possible of you? Maybe you don't have to read the exact, word for word, but is there a question out there or some response to anything that we've been saying over the past hour and 10 minutes? I'm not sure. So this is the first time we're actually doing a show. Oh, he's writing something.
I don't know if that's something they're changed.
Something happened.
Something happened.
Okay. Oh, they're writing. So how to do it? I am in panic mode, I'm guessing. Or whom can I call?
Who to call?
Is this,
Yeah,
is this
I-
it? Okay, so if somebody has a panic, right? Who can they call? Well, you guys, I have some suggestions, but I don't think it's really so much about the call. I don't think that when you're panic mode, you should be talking to anyone. I think you should be focused on breathing. Kind of bring yourself down first. You got to learn how to calm yourself.
I would 100%
And
agree. Though
once-
I feel like if they've already typed in,
Yeah.
then they're probably at least breathing
Right, right,
some
right.
rational, right? Like there's
Right.
some rational.
Because I'd like to give people some pointers. Clearly, the three of us have gone through something, and we were able to get out of it in some way. So my way would be the breathing part, and I
Yeah.
do a 4-4-4, which is a 4 in,
box breath, yeah.
so I kind of go, and really within 60 seconds, when you allow oxygen into your body, into your brain,
Right.
you actually tend to calm down.
100%.
It's why you see people with
diaphragmatic
bag,
breathing,
right?
yeah.
At the same time.
lying down
Lying-
also
or,
helps
feet
to
in the
immediately
ground.
calm your body.
Feet on the ground.
Yeah.
I usually take off my shoes
bare
whenever I
feet,
feel
yeah.
nervous. I don't know, like just
100%
to
of
kind of feel
earthing,
grounded.
Yep.
I look at my surroundings,
Yep.
seeing that everything is actually okay.
If you need to stand,
Right,
If you
right.
need to stand, and especially if you need to stand, grabbing a hold of something that's
Right.
like a tabletop or a countertop at least,
Something
right? So
with
you
texture too.
right, so that you're actually getting your senses.
I don't think if you
involved,
would
so
call like a ambulance if you're having a panic attack, I don't think they can do much for you at that moment in time except for give you inhalation machine to just breathe better, which is exactly
Right.
what
Then-
you already can do on your own. I think you have to kind of figure out where the panic attack is actually coming from, right? So like once you kind of settle down, then you got to figure out like what triggered it.
right.
Where did this come from, and maybe from that
Could
trigger.
be the point at which you reach out to somebody, talk to somebody to
Right.
help you figure out where the panic started.
Right. Anything else? Maybe on panic. Joe,
Yeah.
are there other question? Oh, it's someone
How-
else. Do you want to read it? You can read it.
It just how to know or notice if someone is on stress, how to reach them. So
So someone is stressing out.
Yeah.
Don't don't make them more stressful.
Yeah.
You try to calm the situation. It's funny.
Well, and
Well,
also
how to-
you
how to
model it, right?
notice-
Yep.
How to
Model.
notice if someone is stressed out.
Right.
So not,
Well, it depends.
your answers are suggesting that you do know that they're stressed out.
Yeah.
It seems to be like, how do I tell if somebody is,
If-
freaking
if-
out?
Well, you could always tell. Physically, you can see their body language very often. If they're agitated, there's tremors in their hand. There's often
Well, if it's
tremors in their
if it's physical, you can
lips.
most likely see
Yeah.
it. If it's
Yeah.
mental, then you would never know what they're actually going through. But at the same time, I think it's really through conversation. I think it's really like
Mm-hmm.
being an ear. I talk a lot, but like when I have people who are reaching out, I listen. I mean,
yeah.
that's that, and I'm like, and I don't say it's going to be okay. I just go, I hear you. No, this is some
I
this is
gotcha.
some serious stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean, I
Well,
don't
that's
know
a-
what you're really feeling.
That's an
Right.
excellent point to really be present with the person that
Absolutely.
you're interacting with. If you know them at all, if you care about them at all,
Right.
do them the courtesy, the honor of actually listening to them with all your senses and
Absolutely.
really, feel their energy, really get a sense of where they're at and give them some space to open up. If
Right.
Holding you bring up holding space. Really that's
Mhm.
what it's. A lot of people hear this term going holding space. What does that mean?
Mhm.
But really, it's the energy. Just like we were talking
Yeah.
about with the pandemic, we are contagious. Like we are literally animals
Right.
that emit,
No
certain
question.
vibratory
Yeah.
element. We are electric and we are magnetic, so we emit a certain pulsation. So really, holding space becomes that being the calm, being the eye of the storm, right? Something for them to hold on to in that time, so that they can regulate their electric, their electromagnetic
Mhm.
frequency at that moment, so that they can down-regulate their parasympathetic nervous system, right?
I want you guys, as we're finishing off the show, I want you to maybe tell me a little bit more about what you're doing these days. Give me maybe like a plug, but something relating to the mental health and maybe how they can reach out to you. Because you probably have a personal story. Maybe you won't share it here, but there's something you might share one-on-one with someone, not on a radio show where
Sure.
hopefully more than 12 people are watching. But somewhere where people can reach out and say, hey, how do I become a part of this amazing group? And what can I learn from it? How much does it cost? And I think money is actually very important here. Because today, if you really want good help, you got to pay for it. Right? I mean, nothing's covered, right? You got to pay for the help. And what if you're in a situation where you just lost your job and you need help? Where do you go then? Right? So my answer to that, it would be someone you trust, someone who doesn't really have much judgment, and someone who can just really listen and be there. And he or she does not have to offer advice. Because just like the book, you just let everything out, and then you sit on it for a day, and just like crying, you release it, and then the next day it's a brand new day, right?
Yeah.
So
I found journaling also really great for that too. Talking about releasing your feelings, getting things sort of out of your body and onto a piece of paper or
Right.
into the notes on your phone or whatever. For me, that was very, very therapeutic and really got me through the darkest days.
I want you to share so much. I can feel his energy, and I'm dying. Please tell me a story. But I don't want to push. But if you have a
just
chance,
in this particular venue, I will say, as I mentioned before, I have my own podcast, and early on in the podcast, I did tell my story with some detail,
Mhm.
you know, and to be honest, my ex-wife felt like I shared a little too much, and
Right.
she shit all over me for it. And I took that episode down, and I had a whole emotional block about that for
Got
like
it. Got it.
a year. And in this particular setting, I just don't want to open myself up to that anymore.
Respect. I respect
Right,
that.
but
Mhm.
yeah, I have told my story in many platforms. I've co-authored books. You know, I do a lot of content on Facebook. Like I said, podcasting. Like, you know, I feel like I'm pretty open with my story.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Again,
in
and
this moment,
no,
I'm not sure.
everybody's different. I mean, I'm very open with my stuff because I don't care for judgment. Like, it just doesn't bother me at all. I am who I am, and that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
If unless I affect you personally or I hurt you,
Mhm.
which I don't plan to, and maybe if it happens, it happens. But I'm very open, so I totally understand. But talk to me about maybe about since you already are speaking about what is it you do with the Man Group. Talk a little bit more in depth about this, the company that you're running.
Live more.
Yep.
Live more. Yeah, I mean, live more. As I mentioned, it's a vision that I had. It's like an umbrella. It's like a flag that I fly. It's a banner that kind of ties everything that I do, ties all my work together.
Mm-hmm.
With the intention of creating something highly visible, and that it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a Tony Robbins. It doesn't have to be a $10,000 Bob Proctor course. It can just be a T-shirt. It can just be a 5-minute conversation. It can be, you know, it can function at any level that you want it to, depending on what you're ready for.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is what I'm building. This is what I've been building for the last 3 years. And yeah, I do coaching one-on-one. Right. I have an online course that I created. I'm basically just cranking out as much material and as many resources as I possibly can.
And where can people find those that information? Because if you have all these courses, I'm sure people would like to know, or be able to read some of the stuff that you're writing or see your
Sure.
podcast.
Yeah, I mean, my website is as it says there is live-more.ca.
Mm-hmm.
The online course that I created is called The Lost and Found Man, and that website is like www.lostandfoundman.ca. You can find me on Facebook for sure, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. It's all tied together as well as I could. Sometimes the names don't quite work
Mhm.
out perfectly, but yeah, my email is my name. It's Jonathan@livemore.ca. I've done my best to make it as easy as possible to get a hold of me,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I'm ready to have that conversation and to be an ear that will listen.
In your men's group, if you can mention one thing, it's because next week we're going to have women of the 21st century. Sort of like, the way I look at it is things have really changed. Like the dynamic of the man and the woman. Opening the door for the lady and having to pay, and then at the same time there's other responsibilities that come with it.
Yeah.
I'll talk about more in depth next week. But if you can tell me maybe one or two things that men face, that they like the number one problem that men face, and that they come to you in the group. Is it financial? Is it emotional? Like, what is the?
It's emotional. In my experience, at least, it's emotional. The men's group is called Together Men Rise.
Mm-hmm.
It is separate from everything else that I've built, in the sense that it wasn't intended to be like part of my brand. It was a coming together of men who wanted the same things.
Mhm.
We all wanted to be part of something bigger than ourselves and create a men's group that we could expand.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Are like guest speakers that come out? Is it like do people
It's
go
still
on
pretty
to a resort for a week? Like what's and those things do happen. So
Yeah, those are great.
those things will happen.
okay.
We're still pretty small at the moment. We were originally a group of 7. One of the guys dropped out, so now we're 6, and we're looking for a new number 7.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we are pretty small. We've formed a very tight group of like founding members.
Mm-hmm.
We've all shared our stories with each other. We all know each other quite well. We meet like every 2 weeks via Zoom, and I mean, prior, we were going out and doing things, but
Yeah.
Right.
but yeah,
Kiboshed.
the emotional, the commonality, the connection is that emotional freedom and vulnerability,
Mhm.
where we know each of us has our story. None of us are in a space of judging each other. in sharing, we empower ourselves, and we get to know that it's cool to let these things out. You know.
Do you think that it has a lot to do with the content that they're learning during that day, or is it more of like the outing? So, for example, for a person to go and be with his peers, that's already therapeutic for a person, as opposed to like just the information. Because somebody said, "Oh, today's going to be a boring talk." Well, my boys are there, so it's like more of a social club. Because now you're doing it through Zoom.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it has become a little bit different.
For a group of men to get together as equals and talk about real things, you know, not just sort of shooting the shit about beer and hockey and whatever. Like we're talking about
What else says there? Women.
God, there's so
Well,
chaos.
No, that's it.
It's okay.
That's
You're
it. Women.
Canadian.
That's it. That's the
cars, they're women, right?
cars.
That's all women
For
talk
a
about
group
too.
of
Yeah,
dudes
of course.
to get together and be
Summer loving, having a blast.
unashamed with each other, to talk about whatever is going on in their lives, and to share at that deeper level with each other, connect with each other on that deeper level is amazing.
Yeah.
And it inspires all of us. Like it is a group of equals, and it inspires all of us to expand our group and to get more guys involved and to make it more visible, and to, you know, again, we're creating another movement to elevate, to elevate men is my focus, is also the men's group's focus. But I've always said that an empowered man who loves himself and knows himself will elevate everyone around him, including his wife, his kids, his friends, whoever, you know. It's not just about men. It's about creating a better world, if you will,
Right.
starting with men.
A better surrounding for himself.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, again, a woman, there's a saying, right? The woman can either lift you up or.
You know what you want to hear something I really like? You know how they say happy wife, happy life?
Yes.
Mhm.
I'm like, happy spouse, happy house.
Perfect timing, Joe. Perfect timing. He gave it to you, Joe. Thanks for listening.
Because really, it goes.
Yeah.
It's both
goes both
ways,
ways.
right?
Yeah,
it
for
goes
sure,
both
for sure.
ways. I mean, it's
for sure. But nobody
right?
cares about us men anymore. We're
No, don't
no,
do the smallest.
don't worry.
Violin,
Next
I'm telling you,
next week I'm going to be sharing so much.
Good, because I mean, honestly, I really, like I was saying, I really feel like the pendulum swung so far the other way in this thing called third wave feminism. Now, that being said, even Gloria Steinem, who had famously said, a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, back in the second wave feminism days, she retracted it afterwards, saying, I regret saying that. It went too far. It became a man-bashing thing, and it wasn't
Everything
ever,
is going too far today.
it
I mean,
was
that's-
never meant to be a man-bashing thing.
There's a
It
hashtag.
was never meant to be, it was meant to be an equalization. And really it went too far, and a lot of men are suffering because of it. So I'm on team man, right? Happy house, happy spouse. Happy spouse, happy house. Goes into that.
And now it's your opportunity. Just talk to us a little bit about what you're doing today, and especially in the mental health world. Like where you taking this? I know that you're inspiring women, especially, but I'm sure you do a lot more than just that,
Yeah.
because you're everywhere. Everywhere. I feel like
I'm
CD,
like the-
Like
CDTV.
or like Big Brother.
1980.
Sister.
Right now it's 1984. We're living it. We're
it
living
was like Orwell went, I warned you guys. I warned you guys about this. I'm actually really into dystopian fiction right now. I'm rereading a few classics.
Perfect time for it.
Right? Or speculative fiction, because, it's kind of like, it's not dystopian. It's sort of like, it might happen.
I've been watching Animal Farm many a times, like over the past month. I just want to get a pig. That's like the last thing. That's all I can. I'm going to get a pig, right, honey? What lesson did you learn? I want to get a pig.
Yeah, well, I'm getting my own little animal farm together too, but
Oh, there you go.
That's the wrong one.
That's
it's not a pig. It's kind of like, yeah. It's like we're playing Spooky Toys.
I'll
play it.
So definitely, one of the things that I always work with my authors 100% apropos the mental health. So I'm a firm believer when you do something for others, you heal yourself.
Right.
Right? You want to, if you want to make $1 million, help 1 million people. If you want to heal your darkness, shine the light for somebody else. Right? It 100% everything in this life has is cause and effect, has this yin and yang, has this balance between, if you want something for yourself, give it. give it. It sounds, it sounds like a contradiction in terms. But that's actually how it works. Whatever you want for you, you give it.
As long as you're not trying to give from an empty cup.
100%. 100%. But if you want someone to fill your cup, right? It becomes this balance between, if you want someone to fill your cup, I mean, you've got to learn boundaries. You've got to learn like radical standards for yourself. But don't be so scared of having boundaries and that you're setting up a wall, right? You need to give it, right? Like, be the change you wish to see in the world. You got to put it out energetically first. So when I help people write their books, 100%, one of the things that we always do with that, writing a book is mental health. I'm telling you, it's literally, there's no, like, I save my authors, we're always talking about it, like they tell me thousands of hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars on a therapy chair saved just by writing a book, because you get it all out and you sit with it. You're in your cave and you work it. But one of the things we always do is ensure that we're giving something for the next. So some part of, they choose a charitable partner, and they always have some proceeds going to that, and then they get to inspire the other people, the other generation, in whatever genre it is that they're writing, whatever charitable partner they chose. So yeah, they can find me. MaverickProductionsinc.com is my one-stop shop for all your book production needs. MaravRichter.com, of course, always on any social media platform.
You are everywhere. I do see you literally everywhere. Like, you're always see you either just talking to the camera, advertising a book. You're just. I actually read what you wrote the other day about the yelling part.
Yeah.
Pretty expressive. So
yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, and that's because we're friends on Facebook. But I haven't actually unleashed.
But I'm reading. I'm reading. You know how much stuff I have, and I'm still reading.
But I have actually some plans for some bigger things to come out. So I'm glad to hear that you're.
I have a controversial question before I end.
Ooh, I love.
It's a little controversial, but
is Joe gonna do?
No, maybe.
Okay.
But the controversial question is as follows. When I really got. Somebody's just blowing on the microphone in the back.
Yeah.
He didn't have the effect. He's just going, My controversial question is, do you feel like we're fixating mental health? Like there's some sort of fixation over it in some ways. And what I mean by that is that even though we're clearly talking about the issues, I realized that once I kind of started going into all these groups for depression and anxiety and all that, I started getting even more depressed.
Yeah.
And I the more I started talking about it, like I felt like my life revolved around it, and I just wanted out.
Yeah.
So do you feel like this thing could be counterproductive, and where do you draw the line between like helping mental health and kind of saying, look, I just need to do stuff. Like, I need to go out and work.
Counterproductive.
Yeah.
It definitely could get people into a place where they identify with whatever ailment they feel they've got. It's like, oh, I am my allergies, or I am my depression, or I am my broken leg, or whatever. That's how I identify, right? So now I become the depression. So who am I?
The words you use are the house you live in.
Right.
You've got too many of these. Like,
I've got another one.
Like,
I've actually got another one.
You better not, Joe, put the beep on this one.
That words create our reality. Right?
No
the
question.
words that we choose. In fact, the word abracadabra, which we all know as like a magician casting a spell, is in fact ancient Hebrew for I create what I speak.
Oh.
So be careful what words you choose, and not to say that you can't share vulnerability, not to say that you can't share that there's a challenge in your life, that there's a time in your life that you're going through that you need to emotionally have some closure on. But if you're walking around all the time going, I'm so depressed, your cells are listening. Your cells are listening to every single word you say, and you're creating that around you. You create what you speak.
If you're in the groups, if that becomes your lifestyle,
right,
then
I always say, like, instead of going woe is me, go whoa, it's me.
Yeah, change the tone for sure. Good timing, Joe. Good timing, Joe. This was great. I got to learn a little bit about yourselves, and I'm hoping that we're helping people maybe there's more questions out there, you can continue writing to us. I will pass on the information to you, fine people.
Please.
Hopefully you can, reach out and help. As I said, I'm not a specialist when it comes to this. I'm just a person who has the ability to talk in a microphone and have extra cash to be able to pay Joe to give me a room. But I really want...
he pushes buttons.
he pushes mine, so yeah, there you go. But I really want people to, now I'm going to talk to the audience. I really want people to take this opportunity to really look for help if you're in need. There's a lot of people struggling in the dark who are not talking about it, who are smiling in your face, who are telling jokes, but once they go home, it's a completely different story. And we live in a world where Facebook, we think everyone's happy, we think everything is fantastic, but there's a lot more going on than we should know. But the reality is, I feel that you do need to look for help, and wherever you can find it. And it doesn't have to be a specialist. It could be a friend. It could be someone you could trust. But the one thing you have to do is make sure that you set out the rules and the boundaries.
Yeah.
Because if there's judgment, just as you said, one word can change everything. So that person has to be able to just sit and listen and take it in. Like I went to a psychiatrist at one point, and I wanted to kill him. Like, I'm not joking. Like, he was just so aggressive with me, and I was like, this guy's not even listening to me. He's just talking over me the entire time, and he was just trying to push my buttons. I'm not at that place. So I just felt like he wasn't right for me. So the reason I bring this up is just because that person was not able to help you doesn't mean there are not other people out there who are more than willing to help. And believe it or not, it might even come from a place you least expect.
Yeah.
Like Merav here, right?
Yeah.
No,
Who would expect that?
right. What do you know? What do you know? What do you know? So on behalf of my amazing guests, Jonathan, Merav, Ron here, really want to thank you for bringing us back, the Prickly Pear Show. What we do on the Prickly Pear Show, just for people to know, is we discuss, heavy subjects, and we try to unfold. We try to come up with as many ideas as possible, but we're not just going to, have fun. This is not what it's all about. We're not just here to point fingers. We want to give some answers, because life is not, flowers and balloons and the way unicorns and rainbows. It's not. It's actually. And the one thing I want to leave off with is try and be like water. I think. No, but and the reason I bring this up is because water, it just moves forward, right? It's even there's a rock, it's just gonna keep moving, and just allow it to go.
Water is very, very powerful, and it flows smoothly.
Absolutely, and it doesn't complain. It just kind of finds another way out. Well, no, look, the pandemic has done it for us. Like, inspired you to do more.
But I am a lot of water. Joe's gonna message
Joe,
for
yes. Yes, I know. Joe, we don't need to show the video. I was going to plug in the video from a movie that I did. And there's a reason why I wanted to plug it in. But, Joe, we're not going to do it. And I'll just tell you very quickly in the audience. So about 4 years ago, I did a movie on mental health called Living in Darkness. And I was talking about myself. It was sort of like 40 days of going through about, I think it was 40 different modalities, like meditation, hypnosis, whatever it may be, to try and get out. And I put myself on sort of in front of the camera, naked half the time. Nothing good to see. But the reality behind it wasn't about me. The movie was to try and help other people. And while I was making the movie, a tragedy happened. Somebody died. Somebody stole footage. So it became, so right away I said to myself, what am I doing? Like, I just spent 2 months filming a movie. Somebody stole my footage. I now don't have a movie. There were so many people looking forward to seeing it. I was about to give up. And then I said, no, I'm just going to do something different. And the birth of the Prickly Pear Show came because of, and we're right now, this was 4 years ago. So literally like 2 months after the failure, something better came out. So thank you very much for bringing back the show. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Joe. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to everyone. Next week, we have amazing guests. We're going to be talking about women of the 21st century. Stick around. That one's going to be amazing, because I'm going to be very controversial next week. So if we want controversy, me and a bunch of women, that's going to bring you some real controversy. Thank you very much. Have yourself an amazing night, and happy World Mental Health Day. Take care.